Boom, I just started recording. If for some reason my computer dies, just don't leave Zoom, okay? Because I'll join again. Um,
Okay.
but anyways, welcome to this podcast. This is the first episode. We've been doing some podcasts about movies, old movies, great movies like The Matrix that we did recently, just today. Actually, we recorded it last night, but it went live today. And today we're gonna start doing shows. And the first show is The Queen's Gambit, which is a Netflix show. Just came out on Netflix. I don't know when it came out, probably 2 weeks ago or something like that. I watched it last week, and a lot of people have seen this show, and people are loving it, and I loved it. What about you, David?
Oh, it was so good. I absolutely adored the Queen's Gambit. I
Yes,
couldn't put it down.
me
I think I
neither.
finished it in 2 sessions, maybe 3.
Few sessions. Well, for me, it was exactly the same, 2 or 3. I'm not sure which one because I watched it so fast. I think, I don't know. It was 2 days, I think. Took me 2 days, I think. But it was so freaking good, and it's a pretty short show because it's a mini series, so it's pretty doable in 2 sessions. I think might have 8 episodes, 7 episodes. I think it's
Yeah.
7 episodes. So
All riveting, all wonderful.
all wonderful. So it's basically it's a big movie, and I actually really like that format. I like the mini series format a lot, especially for something like Netflix, on demand. I really like what you can do with a mini series because you don't have the limitations of a movie, which is only 2 hours, so you can expand a little bit on your stuff. But at the same time, it's very dual. Like, you can watch it in a couple of days, right? It's not like a huge commitment. Like The Sopranos is absolutely fantastic, but I mean, how long would it take if you start watching The Sopranos now to watch the whole thing? It's a big commitment. How long would it take? Months, probably.
How many seasons is The Sopranos? That's one that I cannot say that I have enjoyed yet.
Uh, you should because it's great, but at the same time, I don't know if you should because it's a huge time commitment. So
Dude, we're in lockdown.
yeah, that's true. And The Sopranos is probably the best show of all time. So
You think so?
it's definitely in the top five. It's definitely in the top five of all time.
Those are some rave reviews, man. I might have to go turn that on after this.
Oh yeah. I mean, also, it depends, right? I mean, it depends on what you like. Because I really like mob stuff. Like, I really like
All right.
mafia movies, and I love The Godfather, for example. I love Godfellas,
Yeah.
and if you like mafia stories, those are the big three. Those are the best. That's like the holy trinity of mafia stories.
Yeah.
Goodfellas,
Goodfellas, is that what you call it?
yeah. The
Yeah.
the movie.
I really want to ask you if you've had any interactions with like private crime, but I don't think this is the right venue for that.
It's fine. No, I haven't had any interactions. I would
You're
like to
not one of
be.
those. Oh, go ahead. Go
I would love to be related to mobsters, man. It would be cool.
ahead.
It would be really cool.
I think Goodfellas is the one that made me think of that question where he's like, is Goodfellas the one where the guy ends up going on, like moving to Arizona and living under the government? Like, what's that called? Witness protection.
Yes, yes. At the end of the movie, at the very end of
Yeah.
yeah,
He
and
has
it's
a monologue. I haven't
oh
seen that whole
yeah,
movie, but he has a monologue about how like he feels safe, but he's like he can't be happy again because living life on the edge like that, living life breaking the rules and saying no to Uncle Sam and just having that lifestyle is so much fun that he just couldn't go be a dad that drinks coffee in the morning and does the normal grind thing. He just couldn't do it. I thought that was fascinating. And it's probably
yeah,
true.
yeah. I mean, that's an absolutely epic monologue actually, because I mean, but that's the thing about that movie, right? That movie is like it's like the Matrix that we did yesterday. You know, every scene in that movie is fantastic.
Yeah.
Like that last scene is absolutely beautiful. And you know what he says that it's really funny in that last scene. I don't
What does he
remember.
say?
I don't remember the exact words, but it's so funny. And but it's basically he's saying there's nowhere like in 100 miles that I can go and eat spaghetti that doesn't come from a can or something like that. You know?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I feel that, man. I
Yeah,
was
that's
in
like his biggest like problem in life. Like crazy to eat some Italian food, and you know he's
he
craving
just
his Italian food, and he can't find it anywhere. And he says he's a schmuck, right? He lives the life of a schmuck. I think that's the word he uses, which is another. I mean, it's so funny that monologue is like, if you like that monologue, you're gonna like them. That movie is absolutely fantastic. We got to do it in the podcast sometime if you haven't seen it,
yeah, let's
because
do it.
it's I mean it's epic. It's just a fantastic movie. I mean, like every scene in that movie is incredible. Um,
What's the one with Johnny Depp? Wasn't there a mobster movie where he's like undercover?
the
They
one with
wanted they
Johnny
wanted to
Depp
take
is,
his shoes off at the Chinese restaurant, and he just won't take his shoes off because he's got the mic in there. You seen that one?
oh yeah, man, that's another classic. That's Donnie Brasco.
Okay, all right. Yeah,
Yeah,
my brother likes those, and I'll walk in to I'll watch him watch them for a few minutes.
Donnie
But I've
Brasco would be like in the top five as well. Donnie Brasco is great, but it's not as good as Goodfellas, The Godfather, and what's the other one I said? The Sopranos.
okay,
Those are like the absolute best.
okay.
But
I'm gonna watch Sopranos. I need to watch it. It's a cult classic. It's an American phenomena
well,
institution.
it's honestly it's probably the best show that has ever been made.
Oh man, that's crazy. And those are fighting words.
I mean, look, watch it and tell me if you don't agree with me. I mean, it's up there with. I mean, I accept other answers, right? I mean, The Wire could be, you know, Breaking Bad,
Breaking Bad would take the top on my list.
right? Game of Thrones, you know.
Eh,
Well, now with that
Game of
last
Thrones was
season,
good up until yeah, they sold out.
yeah, that last season kind of ruined the whole thing. But I mean, I would still, you know, for me, it's still a contender. And you know, you have stuff like Breaking Bad wouldn't really be up there for me. Like it would be like in the top 10, but not my favorite.
Really?
Um, yeah, I mean, I love it, but I think it comes down to personal preference because I can definitely see people like why people would think that might be the best show ever. Just like I think
Yeah.
The Sopranos might be the best show ever. Because when it comes to like your very favorite show, I think it comes down to personal preference to some extent.
Sure.
Like I prefer like
No,
Italian.
Bruno, you're wrong. You're wrong. I
I
set
prefer
I set the
Italian
standard of
mobsters
what perfection is.
to like math drug dealers in New Mexico, you know. But you know, there's people that prefer the New Mexicos, and it's great. I mean, Breaking Bad is fantastic. Have you seen Oh man, what's the new one? Better Call Saul. Have you seen that
I
one?
love it. I love it.
I love it too. It's great. Yeah.
I think it just solidifies the fact that Vince Gilligan is genius. If he can do it with a different tone, like the whole mood of that show is different than Breaking Bad,
Yeah, it's completely different, but it's
but
equally
it's the
great.
same.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the same at the same time. It has the same mood. Exactly. Yeah, that's what I mean, I think.
Yeah.
Anyways, this
Uh,
this Queen's Gambit show, huh?
yeah. It's it's I mean, it's such a great show, and so what is it? So for me, you know, I was thinking about it. I was thinking about the show, and I was thinking, okay, so I'm going to talk about this show with David. So what are we going to talk about exactly about this show? You know, because The Matrix has, for example, that we talked about yesterday. You know, it has a bunch of philosophical questions that you can throw at it, because it just like it brings up so much stuff. But in this case, the one question that for me, I think I want to ask you, why do you think and I don't know if I'll have anything after that, but I do want to ask you, um, what do you think makes the show great? You know, because I probably talked to about 3 or 4 people about this show already. So it's a great success. Everybody that I asked about this show seems to have watched it and seems to have liked it a lot. And I'm
Yeah.
just wondering, like, why do people like this show so much? What's so appealing about this show? Because I loved it, but I don't know if, I don't know why other people liked it.
Well, I think this would be a fun opportunity to digress into like maybe trying to determine what makes any show good. Or do you want to just specifically call out?
No, I mean we can try to answer both questions at the same time.
Sure. Okay. So character development would probably be like a cornerstone of storytelling, right?
That's very
That
smart. Yeah,
I would put
yeah.
that out there as like a plot might be another cornerstone. What do you think? What do you think are the other big factors?
I think you're definitely right with character development. I think maybe it's because the characters are so well developed that might be why people like it. The plot, I'm not really sure in this case. Maybe. Um, I would say, well, for me personally, I really like the main character and the style. You know, it kind of goes together. You know, because she's so stylish, but that
Yeah.
it's like a personification of the show, right? Because the whole show is like that
Yeah.
sexy style, and for her, I mean, for that character, that's a big part of her, right? She's a great chess player, but nobody really is interested in a female chess player that looks like Amy from Big Bang Theory, right? I mean, it would kind of defeat the purpose. I don't know if you watch that show, but basically,
Did you
like,
say looks like?
looks like or like acts like, or
Yeah.
like
Okay.
the cool thing in this case is that she's a nerd, but she's like the most stylish nerd ever, and the whole show is like that. It's a nerdy show. It's a show about people like us that play chess and like chess, but at the same time, it appeals to everybody because the show is like so incredibly stylish. You have this music from the 60s, like the hairdos, the dresses, the men dressed in, nice suits. It's like you really want to be there, you really want to be one of them, right?
Yeah, it's definitely a time in the world where material was definitely, well, I don't know if you could say it's more valued than now, but yeah, your demonstration of how you are, it was definitely considered part of how you dressed for sure in the 50s and 60s. A lot more, I think, than it is now. The
Well,
grunge
people
scene might have come around and been like, hey, we don't need to dress nice or something like that in the 60s or the 80s or whatever,
Well,
90s.
I think you're definitely right that people dress better, right? I mean, if one is to believe the shows, basically, because we weren't alive in the 60s.
It reminds me of it's funny how when you get on a recording, everything you try to remember just doesn't pop into your head. What's
Yeah,
that show?
just
Donald Draper? Donald Draper. What show does he belong to?
Madman.
There we go. I wanted to say Mad Max, but I was like, that's not it.
That's a
It
very
reminds me
different.
of Mad Men
That's a
in
very
like the
different
sense.
aesthetics. Very different aesthetics.
Yeah. But still, both are very good examples of creating a mood with aesthetics. Yeah.
True. True.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they did a good job using aesthetics to build the character. So if you go back to episode 2, where episode 1 is all her childhood, which I
Hmm.
thought was great to start off with.
It's
They told the
fantastic.
story
Yeah.
chronologically, which is
It goes back to why you said about character development, because it really creates um, that. So that's what I really liked about this show. That's one of the things that I think really works with this show is that basically, and for us, we're dudes. It's a little bit weird, but you kind of become Beth, like because you start with her, from her childhood, and you go
we
through.
both got female energy, man. We both got the
Yeah,
feminine
I mean,
energy in there.
this show like puts you in touch with your feminine side because you really embody,
Sure.
her life,
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
whenever
That's a
something
theme for
happens to
sure.
her, you feel it to some extent.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I think a great story does allow you to empathize with the character better. That on that note, I'd like to finish my first thought there. If you go back to episode 2, you'll see that she's not dressed. Remember the whole scene where when she went to school for the first time, public school, and she didn't have the right clothes or shoes, and she was embarrassed by the girls. And remember that?
Yeah, I think that yeah. I mean, finish your thought because I don't want to hijack your thought. But yeah, definitely.
I think that was my point. They did a really good job of using the style and the setting of the time to develop the character. She was an orphan. She didn't know what shoes to wear or what the girls in school were thinking was hip, you know?
Well,
And
I think that just to complete that thought, I think that that is part of her development.
yeah.
She becomes more sophisticated as a person, as a chess player for sure, but also as a person, right? As she rises in the ranks.
Yeah.
Because in the beginning of the show, and this is maybe that's another reason why people like the show so much, is that it's so satisfying, that show. Because remember, in the beginning of the show, she's like crap, right? She's like at the bottom, she's an orphan, and then she gets adopted, she moves up in life a little bit, but then she's like at the bottom of the hierarchy, the social hierarchy in high school, but then she tops them, you know by the end of the show, she's like this big superstar, and the other girl who was the ringleader that made fun of her, she's like this housewife who's miserable, and has this kid and goes to the liquor store, to the supermarket and buys, a bunch of beer because she's probably miserable. And she's a lot more stylish than her at that point, right? So the style kind of goes with the evolution.
Oh.
She like definitely outstyles her by the end of the show by a long shot. Like like everybody in the world is like looking at her pictures on the magazines, and admiring her, and she's having photo shoots, and her fashion is becoming a trademark. Like she's definitely like a famous person at that point, and she's famous for her fashion. And the other girls, they never really moved up. They're just like high school fashion.
Yeah. Hmm. There's so much to say to that. Yeah, okay. And just sticking to the theme of fashion, um, yeah, her sophistication as a chess player, like kind of improved with her fashion as a woman. I don't really have much to say about the clothes she picked. Um, it would be
Well,
nice to have an opinion from someone who
she
loves
look.
clothes.
I can only say she looks really good, but other than that, I don't know.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah, no,
she's very
I can
attractive.
agree with you on that. She's a pretty girl, yeah, and I definitely had a solid crush on her by the end of the show.
Well, I think it's impossible not to. But what's interesting about her is
Fair.
that um, it's not. I don't know if they did it on purpose or not, but her beauty is not. I mean, it's obvious that her beauty is very. It's definitely beauty, but it's not a classical beauty, right? She has she's a little bit weird. There's something exotic about the way she looks. Like it's very
Ooh, exotic, huh?
well exotic. I don't know if exotic. Yeah, I think exotic in a way. It's like unique. It's a very unique type of beauty, right?
I think I know what you're talking about. There's
And
definitely a
that
ten.
that that is also she's unique in every sense. She's unique like physically and also her mind and also the way she plays.
Yeah, yeah. I can't disagree with you on that. Definitely a unique character.
But I mean, if you
Definitely.
everybody fell in love with her by the end of the show. Everybody like pretty much is in love with her.
Yeah. No, it's hard. It's hard. It's hard not to. She's definitely a cute girl. Lovely lady. Do you know that actress's name?
It's Anya Taylor Joy.
Yeah. Hey, Anya, if you're watching this, I'm
Well,
single. I just thought I'd put it on
I'm
on
married, so
the record.
David is definitely the best option. He would be anyways, but
Thanks, Bruno.
um,
I'd be propping you up too, but you're already taken.
I'm already taken. But I admire she's a very pretty girl. And I was gonna say something about that. I don't know. I forgot. I don't know. I was gonna say something related to that. Oh yeah, do you remember that scene with the little boy, the little Russian boy that is playing against her, and he's sort of like dominating her, or he's like
Oh
he's
yeah.
his own, right?
Oh yeah.
Like he's playing a good game, and then they adjourn to the
Yeah.
and the next day she kind of seduces him.
Yeah.
Remember?
She distracts, I would say. Yeah.
Yes, yes, that's a better word. She distracts him, but she knows what she's doing. That's what's so
Oh
funny
yeah.
about it, because she has like this little smile, you know. She knows exactly what she's doing.
Oh yeah. She found his weakness.
Yeah, like
Have you read Josh?
he couldn't play anymore.
Have you read Josh Waitzkin at all? I know we've talked about Josh Waitzkin, the Art of Learning.
Well, no, I haven't. But that's the guy from that movie, Searching for Bobby Fischer, right?
That's the character that
Yeah,
movie's built off of. Yeah.
yeah.
Um, he has an anecdote in his book Art of Learning, which is a beautiful, brilliant book, by the way.
Okay, I gotta
I
read it
can't
then.
say enough. Oh yeah, it'll change your life. That's how good it is. But he has an anecdote about how he was playing these Russian players in his childhood. He's a famous chess player as a child. He's a child chess player, not an adult. Josh Waitzkin.
Yeah, he
And
never played as an adult, right? Competitively.
he won. I think he started to, and he got into high GM, and he was starting to play competitively. But I think he had a kind of a break, a mental break, pretty early.
Yeah, that's.
And he
I
talks
think
about
that's
that in
what
the
I
book.
remember about him. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And he switched to Tai Chi, which was kind of how he found calmness and peace in his soul again. But
No,
my point was,
I
he
think
was
you're wrong.
playing
I
Russians
think
at
it's
one point.
jujitsu. I think it's jujitsu, isn't it?
He started in Tai Chi and
Oh,
won
okay.
push hands championships one year. He tied one year and might have won the next year. He might have just tied one year. I'm not sure. And then he switched into jujitsu when he started enjoying MMA. He wanted to be a
Okay.
good fighter at less, because Tai Chi push hands is more like chess. It's
Yeah,
actually
yeah.
super constrained system, and you have to like control your balance and stuff. I've never done it, but it sounds like a lot of fun. But it's more constrained, like a game of chess, than jujitsu, which is like kind of open ended and lots of opportunities to open yourself up to attacks and blah 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 blah.
Well, I mean,
Um,
Tai Chi is not really a competitive fighting form, but Jiu-Jitsu is extremely competitive. So,
yeah,
Jiu-Jitsu, have you ever done Jiu-Jitsu?
yeah, I did. I did one. I did go to a jujitsu gym at one point and sign up and try it out.
How many classes did you have?
One.
Okay, so you probably didn't quite get it. We should do Jiu-Jitsu. After I was looking into schools when this whole pandemic started. I actually went
Yeah,
to two different places. I tried it out. So I was going to
yeah.
start Jiu-Jitsu when this started, but
Oh, I remember this conversation. We were going to join a gym together.
yeah, we should, man. We should.
Yeah, you and Francel were talking about the dude who, the guy who let you stay at his place in Europe.
Oh
If you
man,
did some jujitsu with him.
so crazy. But
Was that in Budapest? Sorry, go ahead. Keep
that
going.
was in Venice. That was in Venice, but that was just
Okay.
ridiculous. I did do some jujitsu while I was in Brazil last time. I took classes for a while. Um, but yeah, I would really like to become a jiu-jitsu black belt someday. That's like one of my pipe dreams. Because
You should do it, man.
it
Live your
probably
dreams.
no, but it's really hard. But I would love to do it.
You
And but
you had a
basically,
son or a daughter? Sorry.
a daughter.
Okay.
And I want her to take jujitsu class. I want her to be a
That could
black
be
belt.
that could be when you do it, dude. Get your
Yeah,
daughter in there and go with her every day and make that something you guys bond over. That'd be cool, man.
that's true. That's a good idea. And
You could go up the ranks with her. You guys could kick each other's butt.
well,
Imagine having a daughter that could just throw you around, man. That'd be rough.
if I don't do jujitsu with her, she'll be 15 and she'll kick my butt. You know, so it's if I put her
You
in
have to
jujitsu,
keep
I
up.
might as well do it. Yeah, but I mean, I did karate growing up, but karate's, I mean, honestly, it's not as good as jujitsu. Um, but you would like jujitsu. Jujitsu is very much like chess, and that's why that guy really got into
Okay.
jujitsu because it's actually very similar. It's a physical chess.
Okay. Yeah, and I can relate to that a little bit. But I still haven't finished that first thought. Tennis is a lot like chess. When you get the strokes down and you know how to hit cross courts down the line, on the run, all your different shots, It's very much a mental game. In fact, it's at the top level, it's almost purely psychology. The pros have psychologists. They literally have psychologists because you're playing these intense real-time strategy moves with your body. And yeah, tennis is a blast when you get to that point where it is becoming an abstract game. But
I've
so
never
Bobby
gotten to
Fischer,
that point.
it's hard, and it's like learning the violin. They say golf is like 4 years of work before you can actually play it. Like it's one of those sports where you just have to have a huge front end investment. But okay,
Yeah,
Bobby Fischer, Josh
jiu-jitsu as
Waitzkin
well.
is
Yeah,
in Russia. I'm gonna push through here because I want to finish this thought.
go ahead.
He's in Russia, and he can't beat this. He can't beat this kid who is just like his nemesis. And somebody approaches him and his father. His father's his coach, sports writer, coach guy. And he says, "You know what he's doing to you, right?" And they're like, "No, what's going on?" "He's using hypnosis on you." And this kid was tapping the table at a frequency that distracted Waitzkin. He wouldn't let Waitzkin get into his flow state. And Waitzkin talks about flow states all the time in his book, and like how you can use flow states to optimize your performance if you're a top world performer. In fact, Waitzkin has a company now for top world performers to go perfect their games. And he works mostly with CEOs and high-end Fortune 500 types. But yeah, so like he figured out that this kid was literally using a coin to tap the table and causing a hypnosis effect, which is very well, I don't know if I can say it's established scientifically, but it was effective enough to stop him from being able to win. And once he was able to realize that, he was able to focus and hit his flow state and beat this kid. It's all in the book. Art of
Wow,
Learning.
that's really interesting. So that's basically what she was doing, but in a non-sexy way.
Yeah, it's kind of how you beat me at chess. You just wait for like 20 minutes until I'm totally like bored,
Yeah,
and then I make a stupid move.
I'm sorry. I need to get better at chess because I take
No,
way too
you
long.
don't. You've beaten me way more than I've beaten you. You don't
Well,
need to get better. You need to
I
get
take
worse.
way too long. That's not the proper way. So that's one thing that I noticed in the game. Do you see how fast they were? For me, it takes like forever to make a move, which
We're beginners, man.
must be
Compared to those
incredibly
guys, we are
annoying for people
noobs.
to play against me.
Yeah.
But for them, I mean, they play so fast, and I just don't know. I don't know how you can do that. Like
Yeah.
it requires, like, how smart do you have to be a top chess player? Isn't it? It's like a crazy like level of intelligence.
Sounds like you're begging the nature versus nurture question, but I mean that's a philosophical digression that we can choose to go down if you'd like. I think it's a matter of memorization and pattern recognition at that point. And I think that's actually a theme of the show, right? So we can get back to the show here. Like as a kid, she would hit this flow state. Can you hear me still?
Yeah, perfectly
Okay, good.
fine.
I might lose audio here in a second. I just got the warning from my headphones, but
I'll
um
let you know if that happens.
yeah, so she was taking those drugs as a kid, and there's a whole drug theme in this show that's kind of compelling and relatable to everyone because we all do have our own dependencies and addictions, and sometimes not in like large opioids. Were those benzos? Do we know what those were? That's like a historical fact that the orphanages
I
were
would be
giving out.
interested to learn from you, but because I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either.
I don't know. Okay, I don't know.
But she would take the drug, and she would even save them up for a week or two and then take them. And so her experience with chess as a kid was intuitive, right? Completely intuitive.
Well, she was an innate genius because that's not normal, right? How can you figure out those things by yourself? Like that's not something a normal person does.
well,
Like
I
in
mean,
school, obviously she had like some basically chess superpowers.
okay, you think she was born with a natural like
Oh yeah, for sure. Because
tendency?
you can't learn that way. Like
Well,
she
what
was
if the
learning
drugs put
high level
her?
chess by playing a couple games a week and without learning from anyone.
Okay,
I
I'm going
mean,
to disagree with you gently, if I may.
of
So,
course, yeah.
um, she was playing a lot of chess is what I would say. She was playing a ton of chess, and she would do it in this state of mind where she's in a high dopaminergic state, right? She floods her brain with dopamines, and then she plays on the ceiling. She's having fun. That's her style. She plays out all the different variations of the position she could be in. That's what normal chess players do. In fact, at a certain level of chess, you quit using a board, right? Like that's one of the
Oh,
main
that
points.
that that scene in the car, that scene is insane. they're in the car and they start playing chess without a board.
Yeah, no, yeah. They were just talking the moves, and at
Yeah.
a certain, that's the whole idea behind playing like the where you play lots of people at the same time. You're keeping the board in your head. That Searching for Bobby Fischer movie, one of the themes is his teacher's like, don't look at the board, look in your head, look in your head for the patterns. There's so much visualization in chess.
Oh
It's a
man,
highly visual game.
that was the intersection between chess and the Matrix because Lawrence Fishburne is his mentor, just
Oh
like
yeah,
Morpheus is the mentor to Neo. That just
yeah,
occurred to me. He was his chess mentor. It was beautiful. He's a great
yeah.
character.
Yeah,
Not as
that's
good as
straight up
Morpheus,
Joseph Campbell
but
here with a thousand faces, finding a mentor, the Obi-Wan Kenobi character.
Obi-Wan Kenobi, yeah, or Qui-Gon Jinn for to Obi-Wan and Yoda to whoever Luke Skywalker. Yeah.
Where was the thread we left?
I don't know. I like that idea
Mentorship
though. I like the Joseph Campbell thing that applies to the Matrix and the chess and
and
the
every
Star
other story
Wars.
that's ever been made.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
like that.
Okay, yeah. So I was making a point that she was an intuitive player, and the whole show brings it up. And I feel like the period where she goes to New York and studies with the USA cowboy boy, the narcissist.
He was
Um,
he was so weird looking. Didn't you think that? He looked so weird, right?
He was the stereotypical chess nerd, though. They picked a good
No, but
kid. They picked a good actor.
I love
Skinny,
him. I love him. That
heady,
I love
cerebral.
that guy. But
Yeah,
I watched it with Beth, but Beth was not really interested in the show. She wasn't crazy about it. I don't think.
sure. Hmm.
But she was still watching it with me. But I think the reason why she wasn't crazy about it is that she missed the first couple episodes. And then I told her, hey, you should watch those 2 episodes because this show is like fucking unbelievable. But she wasn't really that interested. So, but she was interested in that guy because she thought he looked so weird and she looked like a creep, you know. But I thought that was a bit mean. I mean, he just looked a little bit weird, but he did look weird. And he's the guy he's the guy that shows up in Game of Thrones, has a small part in Game of Thrones. He's one of the kids in Game of
Yeah,
Thrones. And also he's I think I recognize him because he's in Love Actually, that British Christmas movie, and he's the little kid. Do
I
you know
haven't
the
seen that
movie?
one. I haven't seen Love Actually.
Okay, so yeah, because I was gonna make a joke, but it was kind of a mean joke, so I don't want to. Yeah, it's based. So
Sorry,
based.
dude. I probably should have just laughed when you said he looked funny.
Well,
He
no,
did. He
it's
does.
okay. I'm gonna say something a little bit mean, but they're not gonna watch this podcast. Basically, he's one of those guys that he's like a really good, um, sort of like good-looking kids, that but he's an actor and he grows up and he's not so good looking as an adult.
Maybe.
Yeah, like Macaulay Culkin. You know.
Okay. I don't know, man. I'm not a very good judge of men's like attractiveness.
I
I
know, but
definitely didn't feel
anyways, let's
attracted to
let's
him.
let's move on. Let's move on. You didn't think he looked weird. That's fine. I like the guy. I like the style. I like he was like a chess cowboy, which is a weird intersection of being like really nerdy and being cool.
Well, I think what makes that character, that girl, exotic is the fact that, and I think what makes her so attractive to everyone loves that show, and maybe even especially guys like us that love, analytical and chess and intellectual things, and is the fact that she was smart. There's a whole like group of people called sapiosexuals that are like that. I think the definition is that they put intelligence ahead of physical attraction. And so, I mean, I'm definitely in that camp for sure. Like, I've noticed that tendency in
So
my
what
like
happens when
romantic
someone's
interest.
like really good looking and really smart? It just blows your
Oh,
mind.
it's just insane. Yeah, she blew my mind, man. It
Yeah.
is straight up just a mind melt. I was just like, oh, but
That's
I mean,
imagine those guys,
she's
those
not a real
like
person.
chess nerds. They've never encountered an animal like her, like a creature like her. It's like what is this? What is this thing?
They even had a whole character just for that experience, right? The nerd did he beat her the first tournament, or did she beat him the first tournament? I can't remember. And then he shows back up when she moves back to town,
Oh
right?
yeah, yeah, for
Right
sure.
after her, right
Uh,
after her spoiler warning, her mom dies, and
Beltic?
he,
Is it Beltic? Celtic?
I
Meltic?
can't remember.
Something like
I
that.
should probably review character names before we record a podcast.
Oh, who cares? Who cares? It's Beltic or something like that. But he's an important character in the show. He's her first boyfriend, sort of.
Yeah, which is an interesting conversation, I think, especially his experience. Like their whole courtship was so awkward,
It's really
and
awkward, but they're awkward people. It's impossible to. That's what's cool about the show, though, that you really like these really awkward characters.
do you think it's fair for us to talk about her like sexual development as a person? Because that's definitely a theme in the show, and it was very
Well,
strange.
it was really weird because I felt like I was Beth, because like I was like putting myself in her position, so it was like I was having like these boyfriends, It's a weird like, and I like them, that makes it even weirder, because I like the Baltic dude, I like the cowboy dude, and they're all like really bad looking, She's like this gorgeous girl, and she's
I
dating like
just
these
don't
nerds,
know.
and yeah, but come on, they're not Brad Pitt, right? I mean, you do
Okay,
know.
yeah. No, okay, I can give you. I can. My ability to detect if a man is attractive or not is sensitive enough to know that they're not Brad Pitt. Yes,
Right, they're not
it's
they're
not
not in Brad Pitt territory. I think that's fair to say.
sure.
Um, and who's the other guy? Oh, she likes the guy that, but I don't think she dates him, like the photographer, right, or the journalist. But she
She
likes that.
likes him.
She
She's
likes him.
really into him, but I
Yeah.
forgot what happened there. Did he diss her or was he gay? I it was one
Well,
of those two.
no, I think it's just that he was.
Not
I
reciprocating the interest.
I, well, I think it's probably because she was really young. He's an older guy. I mean, he's probably in his 30s, and she looks older because the actress is not that young. The actress is probably 25 or something like that, but she is playing someone who's 17. It's just yeah. I mean, she doesn't look like it, honestly.
Yeah,
I mean, she pretty much looks the same throughout the show, and
yeah,
in the beginning she's like 17, 15. I think she's 15. Like in the second episode, she's like
yeah,
15. But she doesn't look
hmm
15, obviously.
yeah. And the clerk at the store caught her stealing, but he never called her out on it or something. Yeah,
No, he
as a little
does.
girl.
He does.
He just remembered it. He just remembered it 20 years later or something,
Oh
15
yeah,
years later.
like it's a little bit weird because yeah, the
The
time
timeline.
yeah, it's hard to follow the timeline because obviously she looks the same when she's 15 and when she's probably at that point like 25 in the show as well towards the end. So it's kind of a weird, yeah, it's not easy to follow the time. Like you don't know how much time passes between each scene.
Yeah. Yeah, their handling of time is definitely
It's
not
not
a
the
priority
strongest
for the
part. Yeah,
storyteller. Yeah.
it's not the strongest part. It's easier to do in a book than it is in a series like this because like you have the same actress in this case, right? And yeah, they could have done a better job, I think, with makeup and all that, but still, it's always a little bit weird when that happens. Like, there's a bunch of it, like Leo DiCaprio and Catch Me If You Can. Like in the beginning of the movie, he's playing a guy who's like 15, and I mean, he doesn't look 15, but it's like suspension of disbelief.
Sure. Yeah, and you kind of have to do that unless you want to spend a ton of money. Did you see that Boyhood movie or the Manhood movie or whatever that was called
I
or
did,
that
yeah,
was
Boyhood, yeah.
with Ethan Hawke or whatever? And they actually filmed it over the 15 years that the kid was growing up, so you got the actual experience of watching him grow up. But it was just like one of the worst movies.
I
I
think
felt.
I think we have like a similar taste in movies, yeah, because people said that movie is really good, and I was like, man, get me out of here.
I I got my dad. I was like, Dad, let's go watch this. It'll be like a bonding moment. And it's like 3 hour movie. He looks at me at like an hour and a half in. He's like,
That movie is
Hey,
so bad.
We can go when you want to go, man. I was like,
I like
I
your
kind of
dad,
want
yeah.
to, I kind of want to see it, but okay. Let's go.
You know, I made it through that movie, but I cheated because I watched it at home and I slept through probably 2/3 of the movie. So I saw mostly the beginning, like some select scenes in the middle,
Yeah.
and then I woke up for the last 10 minutes or so.
I feel
So
like
it was
it
doable.
sure. It
If
captured
I
the
had to
story of a
stay
boy
awake for
growing up.
3 hours, man, for that thing,
Yeah.
oh man, that's too much.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a long movie. Unnecessarily long.
And it's boring. It's so boring.
Yep. Very little drama. The characters, I feel like the actor wasn't, yeah, it wasn't the best performance. And it's probably hard to stay in character when you're filming every 2 years. You know, he probably forgets
Yeah,
what the motivation is. All the people are in different parts of their lives. You know, it's probably, there's probably a lot to be said there, more than I want to, actually. There's probably a lot to be
it's
learned from
it's
that
it's
movie.
weird. But you know what? What just occurred to me?
Yeah,
This is another, like, my mind is like all over the place. But
sure.
this is going back to the question I asked you, and you were much better at giving me some answers than I was initially thinking just by myself. Why is the show um, having such success, and why people like it so much? And I was thinking maybe also another thing about the main character, about Beth, is that if you're a woman, she's like a great role model, right? Like she's like what women want to see nowadays. You know, they want to see like a strong, successful
Hmm.
woman, but she's not like some, lesbo. You know, she's like really feminine at the same time. You know, like I mean, I shouldn't say that live. It's a good thing it's just you and me right now. But look, I mean, she's like really feminine, she's like really attractive, but she's also successful. She's strong. She's smart. She's like what women want to be, right? But if you're a guy, she's like basically the kind of girl you want to date. She's also beautiful, smart, everything you want to, obviously. I mean, the problem is she's kind of weird and she's like an alcoholic, but nobody's perfect.
And that was why the first boy left, right? He saw the drugs in the medicine cabinet, and
Oh, she's a drug
realized
addict as well, yeah. A
she
mild
realized
one, but yeah.
yeah, she had some dependency issues and some bad habits for sure. And that was kind of a big theme of the whole story too, right? That was part of her story arc, was overcoming that. Wasn't that kind of like the the crux that allowed her to finally beat the guy at the end? Was that she went in sober and she conquered her demons? And you know, I
Well,
felt like, oh
I
no, all she had to do was look at the ceiling, right?
well, I think it goes back to what you said. You mentioned the whole hero's journey thing, right? And this show actually, I think you're really, I mean, you're dead on right. I think this show, in a strange way, I mean, it's like Star Wars, it really is the hero's journey. She's basically Luke Skywalker. She's like this orphan girl, you know, and she meets this guy, who's Obi-Wan Kenobi, the janitor, and he introduces her to a whole world in which she is not the loser, or like Harry Potter, I'm not a loser after all, I'm not like at the bottom of humanity, I'm not just some orphan who's good for nothing. I actually have this really, like, I'm really special. I'm really special. And then she embarks on her journey, right? It's a long journey, but she embarks on her journey and she conquers the world, at the end, just like Luke Skywalker or Harry Potter, and she's celebrated by everybody when everybody knows how special she is. And I think that's and I haven't read the book, the Hero's Journey book. What's it called? The Hero with a Thousand Faces. I
Hmm.
should read it at some point
I don't
because
think you need to. I think you understand it.
okay. So yeah, so I think it basically that's she does definitely has a hero's journey arc, and that's such a good story. I mean, we watch that again and again and again when it's done right. I mean, people love that stuff. I love that stuff. I want to see Luke Skywalker, and if he's like this cute girl that plays chess, I want to see it.
Yeah. So you have this departure from like almost medieval good versus evil meta narrative in society, right? And I mean, you can even see it, the good versus evil meta narrative of culture playing out in like post 9/11, where Bush hit the media. His narrative, his propaganda to the media for going to Iraq was, they're evil, we're good, essentially, right? It was just a moral argument. There was nothing else to it. And then you have the modernists moving into like measuring everything, right? We see that we can actually use our observation skills to get these what did you just say? Because I'm gonna lay out this framework for the progress of meta like cognition through society, and then I'm gonna forget what I was trying to make a point about.
I don't know, man. You just roll with it. Just roll with it. Whatever you're
What were we
saying,
talking about before this?
I don't know, man. I
I'm not
think
gonna be able to tie it back in. It's gonna be a waste of time.
it doesn't matter, man. Just go with it. I was just saying the hero's journey. That's what I
Okay,
was
the
saying.
hero's journey.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So you end up with like the culture you're in defines kind of what they want their hero to be, right? So throughout all of time, you have you have Sumerians, you have Egyptians, you have the Hebrews, you have all these different cultures that have these mythologies. They usually have two central myths, right? There's the hero myth and there's the creation myth. And our hero myth has always been this um, good versus evil, and we're moving into a culture where we're postmodern, right? So the big problem with postmodernism is that their interpretation is kind of the truth. It's kind of personified in this statement people make, you hear a lot, that's widely accepted to hear, and to accept someone that says my truth, this is my truth, right? Daniel last night in our podcast kind of created a paradigm of like a larger truth and a smaller truth. When you're talking about politically charged ideological themes in a movie, like people that write movies, directors, storytellers, have this incredible long-term power to not control, to influence the culture that they're in, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you can do that very effectively in a culture by propagandizing everyone with these narratives. And I think we see that a little bit here in the feminist agenda of like presenting strong female characters to the world. and
Mm-hmm.
and I'm all for it. I think it's awesome when a woman steps up and plays a role that traditionally these might have been discouraged to play. I think that's awesome. I think the world needs strong women, and
Well,
that's great.
she's like the female counterpart to Bobby Fischer.
I feel like they took Bobby Fischer and made it a female role and then threw it
Yeah,
in.
exactly.
Like just
Yeah,
laid out the
that's what
story.
that's what I'm saying. Yeah,
Yeah.
she's like Bobby Fischer, but as a female.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. And we got to experience her growth as a person, as a little bit as a woman. We got to see her grow up in that way. Um, uh, there was something about what you said, and I needed to bring up the idea of postmodernism with respect to the medieval like culture,
The
because this storyline.
good versus evil thing that you're trying to say.
Yeah, there's a good
No.
versus evil theme that we're moving away from as a culture in our storytelling. And I noticed that here
What's
too.
just so I don't know what you're referring to, the good versus evil. Like in this case, is there a good versus evil, or is there not? Like, what are you saying? Like in regards to that?
They took out they I felt like there was a moral component of this character that's missing, right? There was a lot of moments in the show that were she felt incongruent to me, where I was like, who is this person? I've
So
had a
there's
lot of friends.
and I think you're right. But so basically, what you're saying, just to make sure I understood correctly, is that there's no good versus evil, right? Is that what you're saying?
There's less of it. There's
Less of it.
definitely good versus evil, but it's framed in the context of the current political, situation. Our storytellers are influencing our society with this narrative, and that's almost kind of a minor point. I think the major point is that this character, she was experiencing these relationships, and there's some morality in relationships, especially when you're dating. That's less encouraged in our society. But the thing that really hit me the hardest, I think, was the fact that she was an orphan, right?
Right.
Have you ever had any friends that were orphans? Have you ever gotten to know any orphans really well?
No, no, not
My
not
boss,
really. No.
the lady that hired me at Medtronic here, she just adopted, and or adopted maybe a year and a half ago, and we were talking at one point, and she said, like I'm adopting this kid, I'm gonna love it with my whole heart, but it's coming into a life of trauma. Like when you are, especially if you live 18 years in an orphanage, when you're leaving that, there are abandonment things in you that like are very real, and then that's pretty normal.
It's
That
it's
she didn't go through any of that. I didn't see any of that in her character. And I have friends that I you when you're a kid, you stay up late and you talk about your deepest, darkest stuff. I have friends that have expressed how traumatic that can be, the abandonment of the parents that you have. And I would have liked to have seen her explore that more. Like when her mom died, the support, like that was, I mean, they had like one scene where she cried. Like that would have been like super defining to that character. Like, that would have been world collapsing. She would have, and maybe they did do some of that. Maybe you can help to like defend that idea, but I didn't feel like she experienced much trauma. She was like almost kind of sociopathic or removed
well,
from her emotions.
I understand what you're saying, and usually I would agree with you. But in this case in particular, I didn't feel that way
Sure.
because she is portrayed. It's just because in this case she is portrayed in a very like special way, right? She's not like all there, right? So I think that's another aspect of the whole chess thing that they want to explore because that's what's fun about it. Because you have the Bobby Fischer myth, especially in American society, because the Soviets had like what 15 world champions, right? The United States has one, Bobby Fischer, right? So he's like
Yeah.
the archetype of the chess player, and he was crazy, right? So in especially from the American lens, the chess player is like this genius, but a very unbalanced genius because he's also crazy. I mean, this was Bobby Fischer, and then we're talking about this other guy that they made the movie Searching for Bobby Fischer. He also had his own psychological issues, probably caused by overstimulation when he was a kid, too much pressure and all that. So he had that breakdown. But in her case, she's definitely not a normal person. I mean, I think that's why you see in the show they portray her as someone who is like incredibly smart, but also kind of retarded socially. She's like
Yeah.
super retarded and for lack of a better word, I mean, she's not very developed socially, and also emotionally, she's even worse emotionally. Like she doesn't process her emotions in a way like a normal person would, right? Like the way she interacts with her boyfriends is definitely not normal. Like her boyfriends are not normal people, and they look normal when they interact with her because she's so weird. Like she's so like stilted, like her interactions with them, because she's just not capable of having normal interactions with people. So that's why I didn't really, I wasn't because I figured that out. Like I understood that basically she was special. So I wasn't expecting her to react like a normal person, right? And I think in some ways, I don't know, maybe I'm getting too deep here and having
No, that's fair.
my own
No,
thought. This is just my interpretation, right? It might be completely wrong, but I did think that in a way, like something happened in her mind. That was my interpretation in a way. Something happened in her mind that she was like protecting herself from being too exposed emotionally. So she was like super closed emotionally to protect herself. And that was the only way that she could cope with that. And so she didn't like interact with people emotionally like in a normal way. And the only part in the movie that I think you see her react normally is because she can't contain it, is when she goes back to the orphanage. When she goes back to the orphanage, there's like too much shit going on and she can't contain it anymore. And she ends up crying, and her friend has to console her black friend, Jolene, because the guy died. That guy was like the guy that supported her, like from he was her Obi-Wan
he was
Kenobi.
The
He gave
father
her
figure.
hope in life, right? He was her, in a weird way, he was her father figure, and he
Who do
died.
you think was more the parent, the mom that adopted her, or the chess mentor
I
in the
think it was
basement?
both, but I think in his case, it probably hit her a little bit harder because it was all of a sudden she got hit by this realization. Man, this guy was like my guardian angel. He was looking over my shoulder my whole life, and I never even like went back. You know,
Yeah.
um, and so yeah, and so I think it hit her a little bit harder, but she also like her adopted mother, you know, when she died, I think, yeah, that's another moment that you see her, you see some vulnerability. But I think the orphanage scene was bigger.
Okay. Maybe they did do a better job of it than I realized. Maybe I'm the one who's emotionally insensitive and can't pick up on the cues in the show. I don't know. But
Well, this
yeah,
is
I
just
agree with you.
interpretation. I really like what you said yesterday in the podcast. You said, "Well, what's most important? Like what the artist is trying to tell us, or what
Yeah.
we think when we, you know, when we watch a movie or when we read a book." To me, I mean, I think you're absolutely right. I think it's more interesting what you feel like when you watch a movie or when you read a book, when you look at a painting. You know, because yes, the artist had his own idea or her own idea, but really that doesn't matter. You know, that doesn't matter all that much to you as a viewer. You know, as someone who's interacting with the art. The art only becomes great when you interact with the art, right? I mean, that's
Yeah.
my opinion anyway. I mean, you could definitely make the opposite argument, but that's the way I see it.
No, yeah, that's the great postmodern like thing, right? That's the Wittgensteinian problem, the Chomskyan problem, if you will. The fact that when I use the word love, it means something different to me than it does to you. And I think you can make that analogy for the experience of an entire TV show is as the word love for sure. And then yeah, it makes it yeah. Postmodernism brings its own problems, but I see no reason that we would have to sit down and say this is the truth of what this show means. And I think the people that do that are is equally, you know, I tend to I consider myself right now. I consider myself a Taoist, and I've been really exploring like the ideas of balance and the yin and the yang concepts. And maybe there is like room in society. Maybe there needs to be room in society for the plethora of interpretations and the influence of all of those things. But there's also a whole lot of value to having structure. And
So what does that entail, being a Taoist? I think that's really interesting, but I
yeah,
don't know much about it.
there's two major ideologies that emerged out of China, and one of them was Taoism, and I think it was first. And it's kind of hands off. You kind of just say, "Hey, let's find balance and live peacefully, and live in like the situation that we're given," kind of an attitude. Confucianism was like right after that, and he actually tried to like create a political party. He was very pragmatic, and he found a lot of value in ritual and the tendency to practice essentially like habits, the things that would monks would do nowadays, or somebody that would go to church every Sunday and light a candle, you know, ritual. But
Yeah.
uh, I guess my point was is that like a Taoist is trying to find balance in all things at all times, right? They're not going to pick a tautological or like a one idea to follow in their life. They think that that is the mistake. The mistake is that you do choose Christianity and that's the center of it, or you know, whichever religion you're practicing. The Taoist wants to um, accept all ideas and explore them all and hold them all in a balance. Um,
Yeah. So it's about balance in the universe.
yeah, it's essentially the yin yang symbol, right? You have the black side
And
always trying to
that's where that
overcome the
comes from,
white side.
the
Yeah, that's a
Taoism.
Taoist. It's the
Okay.
oldest symbol in the world, and the center of the black has a little spot of the white, and the center of the white has a little spot of the black. So they're essentially the same thing, which is like kind of the other big idea in Taoism is that we're all the same thing. which has really been changing me lately, actually. Whenever I get mad at someone recently, I've been thinking, David, that's something that you're recognizing in yourself that you need to, come to terms with. And I'll start asking myself, and this is new for me, and something that Christianity never taught me, something that atheism never allowed. But it's kind of like, it's helped me a lot when I'm trying to interact with people and I'm getting frustrated with them. It's like, no, David, this is you, and you've done this to someone before too. That this is something that is within you as well. You're human, just like this person.
You remind me of a Jack Kerouac. You're that kind of figure. You're like a Jack
Oh yeah,
Kerouac. Yeah, in Dharma bums.
you got me smiling. That's a compliment.
Of course,
I
it's a
love
compliment.
Kerouac.
Jack Kerouac is one of my biggest idols.
You just love throwing out compliments, don't you? Yeah.
Well, no, I mean, only when they're due. But you're like that kind of guy, from the West Coast, and you have like spiritual notions, and like you're like this enlightened being, like Jack.
Oh no.
He
Nowhere
was
near
also
enlightenment.
wrong, but he was very enlightened. He was he's like one of my favorite people of all time that I haven't met. Jack
Is there a
Kerouac.
big hippie community out there in Portugal? Is he still alive? Is Jack Kerouac still alive?
No, he died a long time ago.
Okay, that's what I thought.
He died a long time ago. But
is there a big hippie community out in Portugal where you grew up?
Yeah, but I mean, I don't like hippies. I don't like hippies are disgusting. I like the 50s hippies, the pre-hippies. What were they called? The beatniks? Yeah.
Beatniks.
Yeah, the beatnik, whatever they call it. Yeah. So
the guys who brought the ideas over. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So those are. It was different from because by the time you get to the hippies, and maybe I'm talking out of my ass because I wasn't there, and how many hippies have I ever met? But I mean, it just seems to me a lot more shallow, more institutionalized, like it's a mass movement. But when you read Kerouac, it's very genuine, right? He's a genuine.
It's authentic.
He's a genuine traveler. He's he's genuinely interested in the things that he's interested in. For example, spirituality. Like it all comes from a very genuine place. And I like that. I don't feel bad about the hippies. But maybe I'm being unfair. I mean, how many hippies do I actually know? And also, I've met hippies that are hippies from the 2000s. Hippies from the 2000s are not real hippies.
Hipsters.
Yeah, they're like, I don't know what they are, but yeah, it's not the real thing for sure.
Yeah, man. There's definitely a gradient of people that are just selling out to the hippie institution or the religion of hippie, if you will. And then there's the genuine article, and they're all over the place on the West Coast. There's definitely more of that ideology in Portland, Oregon than Seattle or LA. It's just because there's not as much money in Portland, but
you're
there's
from
a lot
Oregon,
less.
Right? Are you from Oregon?
Yeah,
or?
I'm a Portlandian, yeah.
So you're like from the best place in the West Coast.
I don't know about that.
Unless you want to make
very,
movies.
very proud of my Portlandian.
If you want to make movies, it's probably LA, but otherwise, it's probably Portland.
Thanks, man. Yeah, no, I would love to hear more about Portugal. I'm fascinated by other cultures and places.
Well,
I didn't get to go to Portugal.
You're gonna go to Portugal, right? Recently, you were gonna go to Portugal and then you didn't go, but you want to go next year. Is that it?
Yeah. My friend who I met in Prague wants to go to Portugal, and I was like, let's do it. And I did some research on it, dude. I guess that's where Atlantis was. You guys are the seafaring people.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. I don't think it exists.
Is that, I mean, tell me, is that kind of the like, do you have a lot of imagery as a kid? Do you remember seeing a lot of imagery of mermaids and the sea culture and that whole mythological framework? Because that was the kind of vibe I got from what I was reading.
Well, growing up in Portugal, yeah, I mean, it's very different from the United States because the United States is here and now, like the United States, this is like the golden age of the United States. So this United States culture is well, I mean, if we're going by what we learned from the Matrix, 1999 was the best year. And then after that, everything goes downhill, which is not entirely untrue, but it's different. Like Portugal, look, Portugal is very different because Portugal, the golden age of Portugal was 5 centuries ago, and Portuguese culture is still stuck in in the 15th, 16th century in terms of like what Portugal wants to be. So there's a nostalgic element, I think, to Portuguese culture, and it goes back. Yeah, there's a lot of imagery and the especially in Lisbon. In Lisbon, a lot of the monuments are related to the Discovery Age, which was 15th century, 16th
Mm-hmm.
century.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a long time ago, and people are proud of that heritage, and as they should
You
be.
guys are pretty close to Italy too, right?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
and
So all of that
Columbus
Renaissance
was
thinking was right
Columbus
there.
was Italian. Yeah,
Yeah.
but Portugal was actually probably the leading power in the world in terms of like discoveries. And then,
Really?
yeah, Portugal is probably the biggest. And then Spain, and then Italy. Yeah.
Okay. I always think of Da Vinci. Is there like a hero of Portuguese like
Well, Da Vinci wasn't.
Renaissance?
Da Vinci wasn't like a discoverer. He wasn't a. He like Italy was more like the Renaissance, but they also had like great sailors. Columbus
Okay.
obviously is the most famous, and the guy that Americo Vespuccio was Italian, so that he was the guy that they named America after him. Um, and there were others. I don't know. Those were the most famous ones. But yeah, guys from Genova and Venice. At that time, Genova and Venice were the big powers, the big Italian naval powers. Because
Yeah.
Italy wasn't just one unified country. So that's something that Portugal had an advantage over Italy and Spain as well. Because Portugal and
Cool.
Spain became unified a
Yeah.
lot easier. I mean, Italy just became a country, like modern Italy, unified Italy just became a country in the 19th century. So it wasn't that long ago.
Well, they they got a pretty good heritage to build on.
Well, yeah. But before that, it was like independent republics, and but at that time, during the Discovery Age, I mean, those
It's
mercantile
also
republics,
Rome, right?
those
Like,
mercantile republics were at the height of their powers. Genova,
okay.
which is actually, do you know Fabio? Fabio's from Genova,
Okay.
just like Christopher Columbus. And
Oh.
Venice was at the height of their powers as well. But anyways, we digress big time. But who cares? Who cares? It's fun to digress. It's fun to digress.
Yeah, we're just having a good time.
We're just having a good time.
We're just hanging out during the lockdown, man.
Just hanging out during lockdown. But yeah, I mean the show was man, it was a beautiful homage to the game of chess. I would say, it's also. It seems that people that are not chess players like the show, but if you're a chess player, it's the show about chess, right? Even if you're a crappy chess player, like me, you still love it, because it's like this show is for chess. What I don't know.
Hey Bruno.
Yeah.
I think I just switched back to my phone audio. My headphones just died. Do you want me to fix it while we're recording, or do you want to turn it off and let me fix it and start recording again?
No, you can fix it while we're recording, and I can hear you just fine. Anyway,
I'm just gonna fix it.
Okay. Yeah, this show is like, what's a good sports movie? I don't know. It's just it's a great like chess movie. It's a great chess show, basically. But yeah, I'm just gonna pause this because I don't know if you can hear me. Okay, I'm gonna resume. Okay, so yeah, we're saying like this is a great, yeah, it's a beautiful homage to the game of chess, and it's and going back to what I was saying before, like series like the zeitgeist, like today, before I feel that movies, like we did the Matrix yesterday, the Matrix podcast. I feel that movies were great, were basically the greatest expression of like pop culture until the late 90s, like 1999. And then you get to the 2000s, and slowly that I think there's a shift towards people get more interested in cable shows. When shows become really good, like stuff like The Sopranos and The Wire, and then later on, your Game of Thrones and your The Walking Deads, and those become really like the big juggernauts, and pop culture becomes dominated by those shows. And now you have Netflix, you have the streaming shows, and everything is about, on-demand TV. And I mean, even before COVID, I don't think movies really were the greatest expression, not by a long shot, of pop culture. People are really what people want to watch and what people talk about are really Netflix series and HBO series. What do you think about that?
Yeah, if you watch any What Happened in the 90s documentary, one of their highlights will always be that film went from movies to TV shows.
Oh yeah.
Actors switched to wanting to be on TV shows. TV was kind of the low budget option.
Yeah.
And it totally switched around. And maybe that's because camera technology got cheaper and it was easier to film at a higher quality. What do you think would catalyze that? What do you think would be the trigger there?
I think cable was a big part of it. There was definitely something clicked, and I don't know if it became cheaper, the technology, or what it was, but especially with HBO. HBO is when they started making like these really good shows, and that's when you get your The Wire, your The Sopranos, and people start watching that, and they go like, I mean, this is. What is this? I mean, this is not a normal TV show. This is not like the episodic, silly thing that you watch, while you're having dinner. I mean, this is like really good drama, on par with a movie, but it's something that it's much bigger, that it's, in a sense, more compelling. People talk about it more because you get an episode per week, so it builds momentum. And after that, you get a bunch of great shows. It's not just HBO. It's like AMC and FX and Showtime and Stars, and all kinds of networks start investing in these shows, and also streaming. Even before Netflix, I mean, people are also, especially, I was living in Europe. Nobody had Netflix, so what you did, you just pirated shows, and people watch shows online. And that was just the way of the land. There was no even other option. But look, I think I had never watched like a show from the beginning to end until probably 2010 or something like that. And the first one I watched is probably Friends, which is a bad example for the purpose of this. But I watched the whole thing, and I was like, why? Let me watch like a serious show now. And that's when I started getting into the Sopranos side of things. And after that, I never stopped watching shows, but that was kind of around that time that people started watching these shows. And movies also declined because there was a shift to, like, you don't get a lot of stuff like the Queen's Gambit, like you don't get a movie like the Queen's Gambit anymore. You used to get movies like the Queen's Gambit in the 90s, but not anymore. You don't, it's very rare that you get a movie that is a complete shift in or a complete that becomes a pop culture phenomenon, like a movie that stands on its own. Now you get a lot of franchise movies that don't really mean anything, like you get Marvel movies and Star Wars movies. Everything's a product, and those are the movies that people watch, but those are actually movies that people don't care about,
Yeah.
And they certainly are not pushing the envelope, but people watch stuff like the Queen's Gambit, and a bunch of other shows like Stranger Things, and these shows that are completely new really capture people's imagination and become what movies used to become. Like this reason to have conversations about pop culture, about going. It's interesting how stories change, with time. Before, people used to tell stories orally, and then you start getting plays. And I'm not following the timeline precisely here, but then at some point in Europe, people used to watch operas. then plays, again, and the radio at some point, TV sitcoms, like movies became a big thing in the United States, eventually became like a worldwide phenomenon, a way of telling stories that everybody would know and reference. And now it's really not movies anymore. Now it's cable TV shows, and now it's not even cable TV shows anymore because it's streaming shows. Netflix, HBO is not even just on cable anymore. HBO is now HBO on demand.
HBO
And
Max, yeah.
HBO Max, yeah, and that's it's TV on demand. That's where those are the big stories of our time and the way we tell stories and we explore the world, in storytelling.
Agreed.
So the Queen's Gambit is something like that. And that's why it's
Definitely.
interesting to do not just movies anymore, not just movie podcasts, but it's interesting to do episodes like this about a show because if we're talking about stuff that is happening now, especially now with COVID, they don't make movies anymore. But even when they were making movies, really the shows are what people are talking about in terms of what's coming out now.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it was enjoyable for me. My truth here, I guess. It was good for me because I love chess, so there was a natural draw.
Yeah, for me as well. Yeah.
The first episode hooked me because she was obviously going to have this problem with habits and dependencies, and I have an addictive personality, so that was definitely like a hook for me. And then third, she's just lovely lady. I mean, you just have to throw that in there. And then what else did I love about it? Yeah, I mean, the storytelling was good. The aesthetics of the outfits and the way she I loved the way she interacted with people. Maybe that's all. I know. I think you're changing the way I think about that character, Bruno, because I think you are right. I think they were trying to establish her as maybe someone who didn't have the emotional intelligence that you would get from your parents or something, and she was learning. I think about that scene where the first boyfriend, the guy she beat at the first tournament, and they had an intimate moment, if you will, and then at the end of that scene, he's just laying there, and she opens her chess book and starts reading. It's like typically that's the scene where they have like a lovey-dovey cuddle session and talk about something meaningful.
Yeah.
But she was like, "I'm gonna read chess," and he looks at her like, "Are you seriously reading chess right now?"
And that was that was a
do you want me to
recurring
leave?
theme, After they had intimate moments, they always had some chess thing going on with her other boyfriends as well. Sometimes it was her, sometimes it was them. Remember?
Yeah. It's interesting to mix that sexuality in with the culture of the intellectual man. It's because it's just such a weird
Well,
thing that
in a way, the Queen's Gambit is a little bit like all these great shows that I was talking about. Like The Sopranos, for example. The Sopranos is a great show about the mafia, but really, what you like about it is the characters and how they are in their personal lives, their families. How they interact with their friends, their family, in their normal life. And yes, they're also mobsters. In this case, the Queen's Gambit, yeah, she's a great chess player. You love the chess. You love to, especially if you like chess. That's a great part of the show. But at the same time, you also like, you like living through her. You like seeing her in her personal life with her friends, boyfriends, all that. I mean, it's also cool. Like, it's cool to follow the drama, the human drama, as well as the theme, right? And it can be monsters, or it can be chess, or it can be a math, but selling math.
And I think as a viewer, I value the psychological component of a character more than anything else in a story. So yeah, I think it delivered on that. And maybe maybe what made it so good is that they were aware of the awkwardness, and they did such a good job of making it appear that she was awkward that I bought it so hard that it didn't become clear to me that the author was actually trying that. I don't know.
I don't know what the author was trying, but she was definitely a little bit, she wasn't normal socially. I think that's fair to say.
Yeah, and that character wouldn't be
Yeah. I mean,
without a lot of effort.
that's the whole thing. Yeah. I mean, an American story about a great chess player, I mean, it couldn't be about someone normal. Bobby Fischer is too much of an inspiration.
Well, maybe what we're realizing is you can't play chess seriously and still be normal.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, we'd have to go through like all the chess champions. I don't know. I don't know if they're normal people or not. I don't know. I don't know much about Magnus Carlsen, the current world champion. He seems like a fairly normal guy, but I don't know. Maybe he's a bit of a weirdo. I'm not sure.
Who knows?
I think he's like I heard that he's really good. Apparently he must be like a super smart guy or something because he started doing like fantasy football.
Mm-hmm.
But you have that for European football as well. So he got into fantasy football and apparently he became one of the best fantasy football players in the world.
Mm.
So there's like something about, I don't know if it's just raw intelligence or if it's like a specific type of intelligence that is that you can apply to those kinds of things.
I was watching the AlphaGo documentary last night, and they talked about how the algorithm for AlphaGo is different than the algorithm for DeepMind, or the chess one. I thought it was called DeepMind. Deep Blue.
Deep Blue, yeah.
Yeah. And the algorithm for the Deep Blue chess game is basically just raw power. Like, we have enough computational power to predict the future 50 moves and all the variations. So that's what they did. They basically just got all the smartest people when they were trying to beat Kasparov, I believe. And they said, okay, what's the smartest move in this situation? What's the smart in this move in this situation? And they basically gave the computer a hierarchy of decision making it could do. But with Go, it's like Go, I guess, is much more of it's much more of a dance between two like spirits, if you will. Like they were saying, it's all interpreted from Chinese because they're interviewing these old Chinese dudes. But they're like, if you play Go, you
is
can't.
Is the computer able to beat the Go players or not?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really sad to watch that because you see humanity just kind of like shrug. They're just like,
we got to pay attention to the Matrix. Like it's not a good idea to develop the frigging AI. Because the computer, like we're gonna be very vulnerable. Because if the AI wants, the AI will kick our asses. So
I don't need to put more fear into the world, but I was just watching Lex Friedman interview Elon Musk. You know Lex?
No.
Okay. He's an MIT PhD artificial intelligence guru. He's really young. He's our age, I think. But he was interviewing Elon Musk, and Elon was like, "Yeah, we're hitting that point where we're gonna have AGI soon, and we'll see if we're in charge." He's just like casually saying, "Yeah, they just might take over." Like.
We got to be really.
And the reality is, the country that does get AGI first it's over. It's just over.
So what is that exactly? AGI? It's just artificial intelligence?
Yeah, I wish I had like I wish I could just like draw up a graph on this, but basically you have like, I'm trying to look at my video here. You have like human intelligence, right?
Okay.
Most artificial intelligence isn't what the common person like would consider intelligence, right? It's an algorithm that we've predetermined that is the best way of handling a situation. And the problem is that most situations in life are so complicated you just can't write an algorithm for it, which is the perfect, like, it completes my whole thought about the Deep Blue versus Go. Go uses machine learning, whereas Deep Blue uses the algorithm. Trying to keep my thoughts together here. So artificial general intelligence is a software that is capable of handling basically every parameter that you handle, right? So as a human consciousness, you're capable of determining what the important factors in your environment are and making decisions on that. AGI right now it only takes in AI right now only takes in the factors that we tell it to take in. AGI would be like all purpose. So you say, go over to that fridge, it learns the path to the fridge, the obstacles in the way of the fridge, and everything that could go wrong in that process. And then it maneuvers through that.
So it basically it can teach itself, right? AGI.
It's us, except it's faster, and it learns like just like a million times faster. So basically, as soon as it hits our level of intelligence, it's over. It's already over. In like the next few seconds, it's already so superior to us that.
That's another reason why we really need to have, I think we need to have a global form of governance. It doesn't need to be a world government, but we need to have like a very strong United Nations, like there needs to be a control, over these things.
Yeah, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen.
But if it doesn't happen, we're going to destroy ourselves.
Yes.
There's no other outcome. Imagine 1,000 years of us playing God, like there's no other outcome. We're going to destroy ourselves if there's no control.
Yeah. And who's to say it hasn't already happened a couple times? I think about like these oil wells we hit, like the half-life. It's a question of the half-life of carbon, right? It's all these dense carbon deposits. What would our city look like in 1,000 years under, how many layers of dirt? It'd be one lump of carbon, right?
I mean,
a million years later, the city of Minneapolis is a giant oil well under the ground. I think that when we hit these oil wells, what we're hitting is ancient cities that have been there for millennia. And humanity's been through several cycles of growing and destroying itself already. That's my personal pet theory, I guess. That's kind of a fun one. There's no evidence. I mean, there's no way to prove it.
Conspiracy theory territory here.
Man, why does everybody call anything that doesn't have proof a conspiracy? It's like the worst. It's the worst fallacy ever. It's just a logical progression of thought, man.
No, I like it, man. I like it. I like the idea. I think that, maybe that's possible. Who knows? I think that
it's kind of far-fetched.
We need to control these things for sure. It doesn't really matter what we do. We need to control these things because if not, it's not going to end well. It's for sure.
No, you're right. And Elon, if you watch any interview with Elon, he's gone to bat for regulating AI development, and nobody's doing it. Anyone can do it. It's like the whole issue with CRISPR, right?
Well, people are blind because like world leaders are very stupid. Honestly, they're blind because they are not really seeing the issues. I mean, you have to have people like Andrew Yang in positions of power, at least as counselors, because they really need to understand the issues that social media brings, the issue that artificial intelligence brings, all the scientific stuff, nuclear, global warming, environmental degradation. I mean, there's a number of things right now that are not being addressed in a proper manner. And basically just one of them can, destroy everything.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's kind of the problem with democracy in a way, because democracy is like our election process is very bad because it's a popularity contest. And
we're not a democracy, we're a republic, right? We're a democratic republic. You're right. I don't need to be disagreeable. You're right. It's an imperfect system. Capitalism's imperfect. Socialism's imperfect. Marxism's imperfect. Every system that any human being has ever created is completely imperfect. And capitalism has this unique problem of wealth distribution happening, and it seems to take about 200 years. You saw it happen in Rome.
That's another problem that we have that is not being addressed, and it's
the root
serious problem.
I think it's the root cause of all of them. I think that if capitalism didn't run everything with money, then money wouldn't be the deciding factor on everything, and we wouldn't end up.
I agree.
Yeah, I mean, But the thing is that I can say that, and anyone can say that, and it sounds nice, and it's popular to be anti-America right now,
Well,
kind of in our demo.
it's not anti-American though. I mean, there's a real problem with income inequality right now
I just can't think of
because
a better way to do it.
because the problem is it's growing exponentially. It wouldn't be a problem if it weren't for the fact that it was growing exponentially. And this is not something that was happening in the 60s, right? I mean,
Yeah,
we're going to get to a point that it's really going to be unsustainable.
we might already be there, man.
We might already be there. Yeah.
Yeah, and and that's why I'm like, that's why I kind of pet this theory every now and then. It's like maybe it is just this cycle. I mean, there's so much literature going back to the mythology idea. And I was telling you about the hero myth and the creation myth. Almost all of these cultures have a creation myth that centers around this idea of a cycle. Like we as a culture, we as a species are in this cycle of death and rebirth. I mean, that's such a central theme in so many different narratives too. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a major event in our lives, man. Like, but that's a conspiracy theory.
Well, I don't know if it's going to be world destroying, but we're going to see some things happen, I think, unless we die. Because, I mean, yeah, they're going to look, this income inequality thing. I don't think this is sustainable for more than, say, 20 years. I mean, something's going to happen. The environmental degradation thing, eventually we're going to start seeing like some real effects of this. AI, I mean, I don't know when this thing is going to blow up, but I mean, if it does blow up, it's going to change everything.
We still haven't adapted as culture, as a species, to birth control, transistors, or this new CRISPR thing either. Like, CRISPR in and of itself could change everything, like everything.
What's
Have
CRISPR?
you seen? Oh man,
I don't know.
I strongly encourage you to watch the first episode of Unnatural Selection on Netflix.
Oh, I'm
there was
gonna
a
watch
technology
that sounds good.
That would be a good topic for the philosophy group too. But about 4 years ago, they developed gene editing technology that's very accessible, super cheap as well. So if you watch that documentary, it's like the first episode, they talk about the democratization of the technology, but that's less of a point as much as like how much it can actually change human biology. Imagine having eagle vision. There's a gene they're looking for where you can like splice your genes and suddenly you'll be a muscular dude. Like,
yeah,
change your eye
Harari talks about that kind of stuff as well in a really interesting way. You know, you all know
it's
Harari.
here, dude. Yeah, I need to still read *Sapiens*, but you guys have all talked about it so much. I feel like I have.
Well, you gotta at some point you gotta read *Sapiens* because that's just one you cannot miss. But he goes more into philosophy and technology. He goes more into that in *Homo Deus* and 21 Lessons for the 21st Century. It's like the 3 books.
Okay.
But *Sapiens*, I would say, is the best one. But really, where he goes into the technological issues, it's more *Homo Deus*. That's the big one.
There was this really cool Indian guy in Prague that I met. We went to the castle up in Prague, and he was reading him, and he told me not to read the one about the future. He said, read the one about the past and the present, but don't clutter your mind with someone else's ideas of the future. I thought that was interesting. Just felt like sharing.
Yeah. I mean, I disagree with that. I think that it's not like you need to agree with anything, you know, but I think he raises a lot of interesting points. But what I do agree with is the *Sapiens* is the one I like the best, which is the history one.
Yeah. I've heard a lot of great arguments.
He's a historian, actually, you know, so that's why he wrote the book, because he's a historian. The other one is because he's a historian, but he became, as an academic, he's really more interested in technology.
Okay.
So he kind of like mashes both.
Yeah, I need to check it out. Yeah, I think I already know the idea, and I think I'm already bought into it, but I'll read it again. I'll read it regardless.
But yeah, man, this was a great conversation. What do you think about, is this a good time to think about ending it? 'Cause I think you're cutting off as well. So I think we're going to end it here. This is a great podcast. Thanks for listening. And if you like this podcast, please subscribe to the channel. Thank you.